Surprise, we're live.
Surprise. Well, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
So today we're going to be interviewing Nick Osipczak. Is that correct?
Good enough. Osipczak.
Good enough. Nick is a former MMA fighter, entrepreneur, Tai Chi teacher, visual arts, known for being one of the first people in history to represent Tai Chi in MMA. So his mentorship program, Mindful Movements, extracts the most useful training methods from traditional martial arts, combines them with the best and modern sports of MMA has to offer. His human development program designed to help people of all ages and backgrounds transform themselves by taking a holistic approach to self-cultivation through self-awareness. Welcome, Nick. Welcome, Dane.
Hey, great to be here and great to see you again, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
So, have you heard back from Chen Sheng?
Yeah, I read, Nick, I came across this while I was internet stalking you. There was an article in Kung Fu magazine where you were interviewed about the infamous MMA versus Tai Chi fight, and you said that Chen Sheng had offered $1 million to anybody who would uphold the honor of Tai Chi, and you said you made the offer. I was wondering if you'd gotten a call back or anything.
No, I didn't hear anything back, and I didn't really expect to be honest. I just thought I'd put it out there. It sounded like easy money to me.
So, what do you think of that whole idea of martial artists or martial arts schools going around challenging each other? I know it's got a very long and hallowed history in Chinese culture, but what about in the modern world? Where does it fit?
Well, I think it's important, if you're going on record saying you are a good fighter and you're trying to teach other people to be a good fighter, that you've got to back it up. Otherwise, a lot of nonsense is going to be involved in what you teach, and it's only going to get worse from generation to generation. So on the one hand, I think it's great. It's competition, you know, it strives for perfection, weeds out the weak, blah, 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 blah. But saying that, obviously there's a lot more to martial arts than just fighting. So I think, again, it comes back to what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you think of yourself, how you market yourself. And obviously, if you do go down the competition route, I think it should be done with respect and honor. And yeah, it should. There's a way to do it, following the martial code.
Respect and honor, totally.
Yeah.
It's one thing. I think of competition and cooperation as not really being mutually exclusive. I mean, they're really like the yin and the yang. They complement. They only exist in relation to each other, and they contain each other. And so, like, what do you call it when you have people who are say, I mean, like the way that we do push hands and chi sao in martial energetics is it's you have two people who are cooperating, working together to increase both of their skill level by giving each other by challenging each other's skill. So is that cooperation or is it competition? You know, you're not trying to outdo one another. You're both working towards the same end, but you are giving each other the sort of the pressure and the challenge to be able to prove your skill against.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of doing things and a necessary way and a smart way of doing things, but it's not enough. It's not the whole picture. You got to graduate, like you said, yin and yang. It's a spectrum, right? So you got to start from the training right on your own, super soft, and then 50-50 cooperation competition, all the way to 100% competition, zero cooperation. And you can work to get there gradually if you want, but you're never going to know how effective you are as a martial artist if you've never put yourself in that extreme situation where you're trying to get the better of the opponent and they're trying to get the better of you. 100%.
Yep.
Spoken like a true MMA champion.
Well, you know, you can't become a professional MMA fighter without having done that over and over and over again. And you certain martial arts are good for that. Something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, from day one, you're having controlled but live competition. Okay, no, very low risk of injury. You can still have rules, but you're trying your best to better the opponent, and they're trying their best to better you. So straight away, you're getting very honest feedback.
You know, I something that I really admire about you, Nick, is in your last professional fight, you won the fight with a fractured orbital bone, right? Like you actually broke you had a skull fracture and you went on to win the fight, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's almost honestly, it's almost kind of freakish to me. Like, how could a human being have that much will to win? You know, where does that level of desire to win come from? You know, I think that's something that to me really stands out about your just your career and your personality. At least certainly at that time, is that phenomenal will to win.
I don't know if I still have that same will to win, but I certainly had it on that night. And part of the reason I had it on that night was because I designed my life, my scenario, my situation to the point where I had no other option but to win. Okay, I was fully invested in that night, and you know, I guess a lot. Yeah. So basically, I had no choice. I was all in. I was ready to die if that's what it came to.
I remember you saying something very much like that in an interview that and which actually struck me as extreme for MMA, because you don't think of combat sports as being a life or death issue, but you actually said you have to be prepared to die. Like you have to be ready to die, essentially.
Yeah.
Even though you're probably not going to, but just being ready to, being willing to, if that's what it takes. Something along those lines.
That's a big part of the martial arts, and you know, that's where we've come from. So it's important to reconnect to that mindset, the attitude. Again, there are other fighters doing that, and that have always done that today in martial arts, mixed martial arts, for example. And yet there's very few deaths. So it does go to show you can have the attitude without actually going on to die. But yeah, now that I've done that, I don't know if I want to go back to that. It's enough to have done it, kind of thing. And it is very intense, very extreme, but you know, I kind of live my life in those ways, fully throwing myself at whatever phase I'm in at the moment. And that was the phase I was in for that. And now I'm a bit more relaxed about these things.
You're not push hands.
I don't really even spar anymore. I certainly don't compete anymore. So I think I exhausted that energy.
Yeah. Well, do you have any students that are competing right now?
No, and I don't even really teach anymore either, other than seminars and workshops and doing the mindful movements program. You know, I'm sure I will. Well, I'm not sure, but there's a good chance I might come back to working with students on an individual basis later on. But at the moment, I'm so busy with other stuff, business and family, for example, that I've just thrown myself into this. And again, the same attitude that got me successful in martial arts by fully focusing on a project and pouring all my energy into it. That's what I'm doing with business now, and it's paying the same kind of results.
Well, good to hear.
Thank you.
I have kind of a devil's advocate question for you, Nick, because and there's also I saw an interesting comment in the Facebook group that I want to mention, but my question is, your Wikipedia page and lots of other sources bill you as one of the first fighters in history to represent the martial art of Tai Chi Chuan in mixed martial arts competitions. And my devil's advocate question is this: you started with Shaolin Kung Fu and progressed eventually to MMA, and you actually had most of your fights prior to having your Tai Chi epiphany, and I'll be honest, you were a pretty good fighter. It looked like to me before you discovered Tai Chi. So could somebody say, yeah, well, Tai Chi didn't make Nick Osipczak a great fighter. He was already a great fighter. And so why should Tai Chi get any kind of credit for that?
Yeah, well, I don't try to convince people that Tai Chi is a good martial art, which is the reason I don't really teach individuals anymore. It's something you can only come to in your own time to recognize the benefits of it, and maybe see the benefits in terms of martial arts, maybe see it in terms of health, maybe just see it in terms of life. And it really doesn't add any value to my life to try and convince people of its martial benefits. But I believe, for me, I understand movement, I understand intent, I understand power, coordination, the body, everything a lot better now through my Tai Chi practice. So for me, that's only going to add to your martial arts prowess.
It really is the sort of thing that people kind of have to come to at their own time, is what my experience has been. That was certainly my own experience.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've tried so many in the past with MMA people to introduce them to it, something like as simple as standing practice, and they don't get it. So fair enough. If there's no point me trying to force it, when people are ready, I will teach them if it's a good fit.
Yeah.
I'm actually remembering something that I heard in an interview that you kind of made a parallel between Tai Chi and psychedelics. At first, it seems like, well, this is amazing, everybody should do this, and then you realize, well, people have to come to it in their own time, and in their own way.
Yeah.
There was a comment actually also related to representing Tai Chi in MMA. I'm just curious if you're familiar at all with the practical Tai Chi Chuan system or school, because this was Chang Ting Hung. This style was actually called Wudang Tai Chi. And there was I shared this the preview for this video in a group ahead of time, and somebody commented, "Oh, as long as we don't hear the assertion that Nick was the first MMA fighter from a Tai Chi background," and I asked who some others were, and the person said, "Well, Chang Ting Hung and his students, the practical Tai Chi guys, they were competing back in the 70s primarily." But he said, "We admire Nick, though. We're delighted to see him step in the ring representing." This was in a Tai Chi group that I participated in.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with the style, the lineage. I've trained it a bit myself, and I stay away from any forums, especially to do with internal martial arts, for that very reason. You're always going to get a lot of bickering, and no one's going to agree on the same thing. So again, I just kind of choose more wisely how I spend my time. But there was a guy called Sammy Berwick who's from London, and we actually shared a jiu-jitsu coach at separate times who represented Tai Chi and MMA. He just never quite reached the level I did in MMA.
Mm.
I like.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to transition to, so we're going to have a seminar in San Diego where you're going to come out and teach Tai Chi. So what kind of things are you going to be teaching when you come out? If you're not teaching form, so what would you be teaching?
Okay, so I never really plan it in advance. I ask the guys that are organizing it what they want to know, what they want to see, and then I assess the group as a whole, and I can quickly ascertain where the strengths and weaknesses are. And then I normally just introduce some exercises which will lead them down a new path to help fill out some of the areas that they haven't been exposed to, and that will make a bigger impact on their understanding of Tai Chi, and they can take away and practice on their own after that.
Okay.
But normally,
I like how.
I was just going to say, normally I touch a little bit on everything on day one to gauge what people are familiar with and what's new to them. And then on day two, I'll hone in a little bit on the areas they're not so sure about and go a bit deeper on that.
Okay. And so you started out with external martial arts, is that correct? Like a lot of fighting.
As Dane was saying, my first 2 years of martial arts were spent doing Shaolin Kung Fu when I was at university. Then after that, I went to MMA, and I started learning a few different martial arts all at the same time, such as boxing, Thai boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. And then it was when I was 26, I think I switched and just focused on the internal martial arts.
Okay. So what do you see as the distinction between external and internal?
It's something I think about a lot, and I've never really come up with the answer. But certainly, the internal martial arts utilize different way of generating power. That's hard to define exactly what it is, and my understanding of it is always evolving year after year, even 6 months. So it's hard, but I think the best I can say for now is in the internal martial arts, you're more focused on changing the inside. Again, that's in quotes because that's all relative as well. But you're focused on changing the internal conditions to cause an external reaction. Whereas I guess in the external martial arts, everything is more focused about what's happening on the outside. It's a more direct approach, and the internal is a more indirect approach, but a more powerful one. But again, that's full of holes, that explanation, but that's the best I can do for now.
That's actually pretty much identical to the concept that we use. And I was actually just curious, Nick, if you're familiar with the work of Ken Wilber, Integral Theory and the Four Quadrants, and
No.
You're not familiar?
What's his name? I'm going to write it down.
Ken Wilber? Oh, totally. Oh, you'll totally dig Ken Wilber. Yeah, totally. Ken Wilber.
Wilber. W-E-L-L.
W-I-L-B-E-R.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out.
Oh, dude, I'm going to go down in history as the guy who turned Nick Osipczak on to Ken Wilber. Though this is so amazing, and it's live on Facebook. It's going to be recorded. Wow, it's so awesome. Yeah, truly. You'll dig all of it. Integral theory, and there's a whole huge body of work. But so there's four quadrants. What's relevant to this is the four quadrants. He basically says everything has these four quadrants that are separated by two axes: the internal versus the external, or the internal and the external, and the singular and the plural, or the collective. So you can look at the brain through the external quadrant. Objective scientific view would be neurology. The internal subjective quadrant would be psychology. The collective external quadrant would be social psychology. The collective internal quadrant would be anthropology. Roughly anything can be looked at in these through these four lenses. And I was just having a conversation today that brought up this idea that the distinction in martial arts between internal and external corresponds to that those two ways of approaching or looking at any phenomena can be looked at from the perspective of internal effect, working on with what's inside, the focus being on what's going on inside, sensations, experiences, whatnot, and external, the focus being on what's going objectively measurable on the outside.
Okay.
As just, two different facets of reality.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll check it out for sure.
I wanted to say too that I really like. It seems to be the new thing in Tai Chi. I see. I've heard you talk about this and other really innovative teachers in the space, that it's not so much about the form. I mean, my experience has always been, when I tell people I do Tai Chi, if they're a traditional Tai Chi person, the next question out of their mouth is always, what style? And really, I've encountered that it seems to be, the conception is that Tai Chi is the form, and that's what Tai Chi is. It is a form, and this particular style is this form. And this whole idea of a principle-based approach that's not based on memorization and duplication, but that's based on innovation and exploration and discovery, is kind of radical in Tai Chi. And my view on this is that's how Tai Chi is evolving, and a lot of people aren't interested in traditional Tai Chi because they find it boring to memorize a bunch of shit like they had to do in school. And I see the principle-based approach as the future evolution of the art and the practice. So, what's your perspective on that process?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You don't want to get stuck on the form, but the form is super important in handing down those principles, and it's a way of containing a package of the knowledge that can be passed down through the generations. The mistake is when people get too attached to the form and just think whether it's the outer shape, for example, has to look the same way when it's done every time, but it's never going to look the same way every time. So you've got to be focusing more on the feelings, the movement of the energy, and the principles that you should be trying to manifest.
Yeah, very true. Well, one of the great things I love about traditional martial arts is those traditional forms, because that was how our ancestors passed down all their knowledge. Because, writing it down, you can't write down martial arts. You can a little bit, but not really. You're not going to transfer all that information. And the form lets you practice all your strikes, all your blocks, all your basic movements, your stances, and forces you to get stronger just by doing the form 1,000 times, 10,000 times.
Yeah.
So I do believe in the form, but I understand your point. That's how I started out, was the forms, and that's how I got into Tai Chi and competition and all that stuff. So I don't forsake the forms, but I do understand this new concept of learning from the philosophy of Tai Chi first and then developing your skill.
Yeah, well, for me, the form is just something that should always be part of your training throughout the years. But the way you do the form and your understanding of the form is always changing.
Yes. So every single time you do it, it's a little bit better, a little bit different.
Yeah.
All right. So you've been a competitor for a long time, and martial arts has its roots in self-defense, not in competition. So in your opinion, when you look at competition and how self-defense is taught and how competition is taught, where do you see that big distinction as saying, well, someone shouldn't focus on kickboxing so much as they should focus on being able to take space or being able to escape a situation?
Yeah, it's totally up to the individual, where they're coming from, why they're coming from it. So I can't put out some generic statement. All I can say is, I've been teaching a kids class where I live in my town recently, and for me, it's about giving them confidence, knowing how to move, knowing how to use the breath, control their emotions, focus, discipline, all these things. And then later, you know, I mean, that's going to be already enough for me for self-defense. Of course, later, if you're thinking of going into competition, then it's not enough. You've got to learn much more stuff. But as a life tool, that should be enough. And for me, that far outweighs the benefits of being good at competition. But yeah, so it's totally dependent on what your goals are, where you're coming from, even the city where you live. You know, do you live in a place where there's a very real daily threat of you being attacked? Then you've got to learn some stuff. If that's not a threat and it just exists in your head, then you're wasting your time and you're wasting your energy. You should be doing something else, in my opinion. You know, so it's very case specific.
Interesting point. All right. So I know Dane, he's out in Nepal he was teaching kids how to survive the real danger of the streets, where when I'm teaching Tai Chi, it's mostly for health benefits.
Yeah.
For elderly students. So yeah, there's definitely a big difference there. Oh, guess we lost him. So, so you're mentioning breath work. Why don't you tell me a little bit about like the style of breath work, or maybe how you were taught how to do meditation?
Thinking about the breath work is to just do it, just to play around with it. Okay, you can breathe fast, you can breathe slow, you can observe the breath, you can hold the breath. Just experiment, go through a phase, 3 months doing it this way, 3 months doing it that way. And then you're collecting experience, you're collecting data, and you're learning about the body. And then later on, you can just do what you prefer or what works for you. So a big thing for me is not getting fixated on any specific one way of doing it or how it should or shouldn't be done, but it's just to do it.
Okay.
And experiment, play around with it, be playful, have fun. With the kids, I get them breathing from the belly. I get them holding the breath. I get them observing the breath. I get them doing fast physical stuff and then being really still and really silent and just observing the contrast between the two. And it's experience at the end of the day.
Okay, I like that. So meditation. How do you even teach meditation?
For the kids, because they're so young, it's literally a case of sitting still for 30 seconds. Sit still, close your eyes, don't move for 30 seconds. And for some of them, it's almost impossible. They just can't do it. But, you know, if they can do 12 seconds 1 week and 15 seconds the next week, then it's progress. They're heading in the right direction. And sometimes I get them just to scan their body with their awareness and try and feel different parts of their body just by sending their awareness there. So this is all basic stuff. You can find it anywhere. You can go into a yoga class and get this stuff. The information is out there. It's just a case of doing it.
All right. So you were practicing martial arts for quite a long time before you decided to teach, I imagine. What was that transition point for you? Or was your teacher always saying, well, as soon as you can, start teaching?
No, I actually found myself teaching very early on because where I was at uni, there was no MMA club. So people saw I was doing the Kung Fu, I was good at that. They heard I was started to learn MMA back in London where I lived. So then when I was at uni again, which was a few hours away, they were trying to get me to pass on what I'd learned. So straight away I was teaching. And I quickly worked out that I was learning it more quickly by teaching it simultaneously, because it forced me to understand it more, to be able to explain it, to go away and research it. So, you know, I give thanks for that, because now I teach whatever I want to learn, I just try and teach it straight away because it's a quicker way of learning it.
Yeah. That's what Richard Feynman suggested. Yes, welcome back, Dane. Sorry about your...
Okay, good. My audio's back. Yeah. Yeah, just eavesdropping on your conversation here. I wish I could have heard what you were discussing, but I guess I'll have to catch it on the replay.
Yeah, sorry.
We just talked a little bit about breathing, meditation, and then we moved on to how I've been teaching straight off the bat, very early on teaching, and I found it.
Yeah,
we learn.
I love what you're saying about that too, because this is another kind of component of traditional martial arts is that you are supposed to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn until you're qualified by a master. As you know, now you can teach. Now you're a master and you can teach, and that's sort of this ancient tradition. But my observations in the modern world, it's evolving more towards the fluidity of information, and you don't have to be a high master in order to be able to help somebody or share your knowledge, and so I think I agree with exactly what you're saying, that that you really can't develop your full potential unless you are teaching.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, you're never going to work out your fine points if you don't teach them.
Say again?
Yeah.
You're not going to work out those fine points unless you're trying to teach them, because you're never going to push yourself to really try to understand that little detail that you didn't really quite get the last time.
That's it, and you can know things without knowing you know them if you're not teaching them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you catch yourself missing which parts you need to really study.
Yeah.
I think I missed most of what you guys talked about around self-defense, but there are a couple of things that come to mind that have made a really strong impression on me with regards to that, because one of the things that we do in our system, I mean, one of the benefits, one of the functions of the system is effective self-defense. And when I teach people, if they're starting out from some kind of martial arts background, usually they have habits that they've picked up through martial arts that are they're either an effect of tradition, or they're a sort of an effect of competition, so like sport-based environments that are counterproductive for self-defense training, and two things that really I mean, this is my understanding. This has been evolving for many years, but two things that really drove this point home to me. One I mean, if you go on Google and do a search for terms like MMA fighter shot dead, or boxing champ shot dead, or stabbed to death, or etc., you'll find lots and lots of newspaper articles with those kinds of headlines that show that somebody who is a champion competitor is not invulnerable to being murdered, and another, or being a victim of violent crime. I mean, just being robbed and or held up at gunpoint or whatever. But I mean, if you specifically look for fatal incidents of violent crime, they're not hard to find. And when they do happen, of course, they're published pretty extensively. And another incident that really drove this home to me was a woman who came to a self-defense class, and I asked her, like I always do, what her background was and what her interest and motivation was, why she wanted to learn self-defense. And what she said was, my Muay Thai didn't do shit for me when my husband had me pinned down on the ground, choking me. Those were that was what she said to me almost verbatim, and that's just always left a really strong impression with me about what is the difference between martial arts or between other facets of martial arts like fitness or competition and tradition and self-defense.
Okay. Was that a question or?
Not really.
Oh.
His experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do have a question about, or I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, totally agree that my understanding of what self-defense is always evolving, as is my understanding of what the self is. So, the term self-defense is relating to the self. So it's going to evolve if you understand yourself differently.
Well, that's a really excellent point. That's way deep. What is the self? And what is there to defend?
Yeah.
Yeah, just be passive. Let the universe come at you. Don't worry about that.
Isn't there a book that talks about that? It's this really old Chinese book. Can't think of the name of it. What's it called?
It's called the Tao Te Ching is maybe what you're thinking about.
Oh yeah, that one. It says the sage weapons turn from him on the battlefield, and a rhinoceros can't find a place for its horn, and the tiger's claws won't catch because he has no place for death to enter.
Yeah.
That's what's resonating for me with that. I do have a question though, Nick, about related to breath work, because I know you guys talked about that in my hiatus as well. And there's a lot of different kinds of breath work. What I think is so awesome about Qigong and Tai Chi, which is a form of Qigong, is that a lot of people do meditation and know that it has huge benefits. A lot of people exercise, and it's known that that has huge benefits. A lot of people do breath work, and it's known that that has huge benefits. But when you do all of them together in a single activity, it's just amazing. But one of the another person who's had a big influence on me is Stan Groff. Are you familiar with the work of Stan Groff in transpersonal psychology? And he specifically holotropic breath work, which is it's often described as like an acid trip without the acid, because it was developed from his experience being a psychiatrist in Prague in the 1950s and 1960s. He was actually one of the first psychiatrists to use LSD in clinical practice, and he experimented with it for 10 years. So he was one of the pioneers in that area. And
we lost him again. So that one's when you're in Nepal. It's a third world country. The infrastructure is not quite the same as Britain and America. Well, one of the things, so he was talking about breath work and meditation. So again, you were saying you like to experiment with all types of breath work. So do you have any certain patterns that you really like to focus on or like introduce people with? Like the tactical breathing of it's like 4-second inhale, 2-second pause, 6-second exhale, 2-second pause, repeat.
Yeah, I mean, it's more an intuitive thing. Again, I've got to be in front of someone or the group and then work out. And I don't know where it comes from, but it's as if I'm getting some information and I just pass it on. So I don't like to go in with a rigid formula or idea of what will work, because different places, it's all about the setting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's tough to teach individual skills to just everybody. Everyone has a different little set that they can handle. So you started talking about the Tai De Ching. So have you ever read that book?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that book. It was a book which greatly influenced and shaped me, and I'm sure I'll be drawing on it in the years to come for more wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been fascinated with ancient literature for a long time too. I really like the Book of Five Rings. I think that I listen to the audiobook of that thing like at least once a month, just because it's so quick. Or Tai De Ching, yeah. So, do you have any other good book recommendations that you like?
Probably The Art of War will have to go in with those three.
Yeah.
About martial arts, so yeah, the classics.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you have any Tai Chi books that you've ever read that you're like, oh, I like this Tai Chi book in particular, or the Tai Chi Classic?
No, for me, it's all about the Tao Te Ching. That is Tai Chi for me. So again, it's beyond martial arts. It's about life. So, but it's using the principles. For me, I've read many Tai Chi books. None of them really stand out because at the end of the day, it's hard to get what they're talking about from text. So
yeah, it's true.
I'm never able to recommend one when people ask.
Okay. What about the work of Robert Chuckrow? You read his books?
No.
He's actually a physics professor in New York. He's written a few that are some of my favorite ones.
Oh, okay.
All right, you'll have to send me them over then after. I'll have a look into it.
Well, we can put these in the show notes. Okay, so LSD psychotherapy, yeah, and then the way that he developed holotropic breathwork, Stan Groff, was basically recreating the setting that in the office, the couch, the dim lighting, the candles and essential oils and the soft music, but without the LSD. He just had the entire set and setting, but not the compound, and had people breathe in the way that they would breathe while they're undergoing the experience, and people had like almost the identical experience. It's just like the LSD wasn't there, and that was how the holotropic breathing process was developed. And of course, the Wim Hof method is just blowing up these days. I'm sure you've come across that, and there's a lot of attention and interest in breath work lately, I've been noticing. So what I wanted to ask you is like what your experience has been with breath work itself as a sort of standalone practice or outside of the realm of Qigong and Tai Chi.
Well, it's a game changer, 100%. It's invaluable life skill, and it will improve performance undoubtedly. So I've actually got my boy's been doing breathwork since he was 1 year old. Yeah, intentional breathwork since he was 1 year old, because I would push his pram twice. We had to push his pram twice a day to get him to sleep, nap, and nighttime. And that's so I'd use that time to do my breathing. And he was copying it. He would do it the same way. So it's not a good start in life.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
So, what do you have a special, like a personal connection with the Tao Te Ching, Nick?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say it gave me a lot of wisdom, and I tried my best to live by the principles it espouses.
Agreed. Try to be the master.
At what stage of your life did you?
When I was 28, I went traveling. So I had 6 months of getting away from regular stimulus and responsibility, and I could just do my thing every day, live close to nature, and contemplate a lot.
So you encountered the Tao Te Ching after finding Tai Chi?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was I did too. Well, I encountered it before as a teenager and it didn't make any sense, but I encountered it again after finding Tai Chi, and it just it was profoundly different. What about you, Andrew? I know you have a connection with that text as
Oh,
well. How did
I
you
love
come by
that.
it?
It's taught me a lot about the best ways to live a life. And that was one of my favorite things was the story of, how'd this book even come about? Because the master was just a guy living a good life. And someone's like, tell me, I want to know. And he's like, okay. Writes down a little bit and then takes off.
Yeah, it's almost like an afterthought as he's walking away from civilization. He's just like, "Oh, sure, I'll drop this nugget. You can have it."
Yeah.
We have to remember that is just a story about how it originated.
Of course.
Well, in the tradition of all great Chinese stories, I think it was an open source collaborative effort personally, like a ball of cronies or something like that. But at what stage in your life did you first encounter it, Andrew, and how is that related with finding your way to Tai Chi?
Oh, well, I found Tai Chi when I was about 19 years old. And my teacher insisted that if you want to learn Tai Chi, you have to understand the philosophy of Taoism. And so they said, just pick up Tao Te Ching, read it again, read it again, read it again, and eventually you understand what all that means. And so I've just been rereading, and it just becomes more and more reasonable and more obvious every single time you get through it. And
So it was built into your curriculum from the beginning.
Yeah, with my coach, yes. Yeah. My coach, Sufeng Evans, she was a big advocate of reading as well as studying the martial arts.
Yeah, I like to incorporate that as much as possible, and it's I've 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 encountered a number of other people who had just an amazing connection with it, or once I introduced them to it, they developed an amazing connection with it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really love about the book is how it's kind of just describing nature in the best with the words that they had at the time. Obviously, the thing that I find really funny about a lot of modern scientists and people I just meet, they don't appreciate the ancient work because they say, oh, well, they were so wrong. They didn't understand this and that, and they didn't understand atoms. And it's like, hey, man, yeah, they didn't understand atoms, but they understood how nature flows. And if you understand that, you don't really need to understand how an atom works. You just need to understand how water works. If you can understand how water and balls work, you can understand how nature works. You don't really need all the modern science and chemistry and physics and all that stuff.
I think the Chinese.
It's only a benefit having both.
I think the Chinese civilization is the most like historical, or the most scientific culture in history. It was thousands and thousands of years of just direct observation and of all kinds of things.
Very true. Yeah, I was when I visited Korea. They were talking about how the palaces were designed and built, and they were saying, well, they just used Taoism. They just used the idea of the 5 elements and the wheel and how all the elements interact with each other to figure out where to put the palace relative to the river, relative to the mountains, relative to the sun, and it was all based on just this basic idea of the 5 elements and the wheel.
How does this sort of stuff show up in your artwork, Nick? I mean, like the Taoist themes and concepts and related things, like the I Ching, the Feng Shui, and that sort of thing. Because you're also a visual artist, as Andrew mentioned. Is that one of your drawings on the wall there behind you?
Yeah, so this is the, obviously you'd recognize it as based on the yin yang, but I've used 5-pointed stars to represent 5-element theory instead of the regular dots, just to mix it up a bit and make it a bit more unique. But you can't really improve on the original yin yang. It's just a way of mixing things up a bit, and that's actually done in gold leaf. So yeah, my art is based on sacred geometry, and these are ways I hope I understand more about the universe and connection and harmony and patterns through painting them and making them. But I also hope that other people will also gain those benefits too, just by helping ultimately to expand awareness and to be able to identify the way energy can flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of your paintings that I've seen are actually way more intricate than that one, and have a lot more circular symmetry, and angularity. What I know that your background in math has to have an influence on that, like the kind of way that you approach art. What other elements influence that whole process?
Well, it was actually ayahuasca which first made me want to paint these kind of images. For those listening that aren't familiar, ayahuasca is a shamanic plant ceremony ritual, and it kind of ties in with what you're talking a little bit earlier about psychedelics. Essentially accessing some different realms and receiving some information. And so this was a lot of the information I was receiving came in geometrical pattern format. And that is when I got into sacred geometry more and started painting.
I'm curious about that. Have you done a lot of work with plant medicines or with psychedelics, or has it been more like just like a sort of a singular breakthrough that you haven't thought you needed to circle back to yet?
No, I would say the first maybe 26 to 30, something like that. I was doing a fair bit, and then it's gradually reduced from there. But I couldn't really tell you the role it's going to take going forward from here. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's something which stays a constant part of my life and evolution, and I draw strength and wisdom from in the future at some point. But it's kind of
well, that's actually,
once you've had that first experience, it's always there in the background. There's always pointers and synchronicities and reminders about the lessons you are supposed to learn.
Yeah, that's actually an effect that's been measured. The lasting effect of the experience. I could look this up, but the experiments. I want to say it was a Good Friday was the name of the experiments, but I could be imagining that. But they had it was Harvard Divinity School students that they administered psilocybin to in the controlled experiment, and a majority of them said it was the most profound spiritual experience of their life, and they actually followed up with them over the years, up to 30 years later, and these were people who had no previous experience with psychedelics and had no experience in the intervening time, but up to 30 years later, a majority of them still reported that it was one of the most significant experiences of their life, right up there with the birth of a child or the death of a parent.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think back in the day, before modern civilization, this would have been a big part of everyone's life, and it would have been a big again, source of strength, wisdom, inspiration, but also a pointer towards you fulfilling your destiny. So,
Yeah,
absolutely, destiny.
People are wandering around lost and suffering today because they don't know what they're supposed to be up to. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how they fit into the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The world, nothing about themselves. They don't really dive deep into what's in here or here.
Yeah. Well, we're all talking about Tai Chi on here, but I can also share that a part of my spiritual path and practice is I'm actually a member of the Native American Church, which is I mean anybody can join. There's various chapters, but as a member of the Native American Church, you have a federally protected right to work with plant medicines in the U.S. So that option it's not widely known about as it could be or should be, I think, but it is available to people in the U.S. at least. And so kind of related to this is what you said. About in our evolutionary history, our ancestral past, this was a normal part of life for everyone. I also wondering if you are really familiar with Terence McKenna's work and the coevolutionary relationship.
Yeah. And that's why I'm working with hemp at the moment. I'm currently growing what I think is quickly becoming the world's best hemp lifestyle brand, because in England, this is the CBD is legal now. So
when did that?
Well, it's last couple of years it's become legalized, and more significantly for me, with my sporting background, from the 1st of January of this year it became legal in all sports. So for me, this is a way to help promote plant power, plant medicine, whatever you want to call it, plant consciousness to the masses in a legal way.
So you mentioned sports. You're saying as of January of this year, CBD and or THC is not considered a...
No, not THC. THC has to still be kept under a certain level, normally 0.2%, but CBD is fine.
Okay, so for athletes qualifying for competition,
athletes, anyone, they can take it. It's been recognized, the amazing health and medicinal benefits, and that is non-intoxicating, so it's completely safe, completely non-addictive.
That's great. Yeah, I wanted to get some idea of what that situation is like from you, because I don't follow the news. I get all my news from my friends, but in California, where Andrew is now and where I'm based as well, California is one of the first states, if not the first state, to pass medical laws a decade or so ago, and as of January 1st this year, actually, it became one of the first states to have full legal recreational use. So it's no longer like you have to have a recommendation from a doctor. It's that's a big change that has happened and has been a long time coming. And what I've observed is a lot of energy and capital and people moving into the startup space with all kinds of things related to CBD and particularly CBD, but THC is following in the vanguard as far as legitimate business opportunities and just an influx of capital, of investment capital, venture capital. And my theory is that where the money goes, the laws will follow. And it's really encouraging to me to see so much startup activity and so much investment activity in that industry in the U.S. and I'm glad to hear it's taken off and getting popular elsewhere in the world too.
Yeah, it's really blowing up everywhere, and you're right. The governments will be, and the pharmaceutical companies are already doing their best to try and control the whole situation.
Mm-hmm. Of course, they've controlled it for so long, so well. So now it's getting out of hand, and they're trying to scramble to become the primary dealers of it. And it's like the great thing about cannabis is that you can grow it anywhere because it's a weed. And all the people can have it. They can have their own plants, and they don't like the fact that you can make your own medicine.
Agreed.
So you think you're creating one of the best lifestyle brands on the planet? Did I hear you say something to that effect, Nick?
The best hemp lifestyle brand. So
I can believe it. But
hemp's amazing.
Why coconut oil? It's an amazing combination. How did you come by that?
Well, there's an organic hemp farm down the road from me that are already making it, so they were my introduction. They got me into this world, and you know what? It was so funny because I've been waiting for the right opportunity, and one day 2 of those people from the farm walked into my Tai Chi class, and there it was. They literally walked through the door, and then 1 month later, I was in the CBD game. But my goal is to expand and release as many hemp products as possible. Hemp food, hemp drink, hemp clothing, hemp building materials, hemp fuel. You know, the future is green. So got to get in there early.
What about your coconut oil product? What is that for?
It's for everything. It's for homeostasis. It's for balance. So CBD is fat soluble, which is why it's best infused in coconut oil, which is high in healthy fats. Yeah. Then this way you can not only ingest it, whether you're mixing it with your drink or you're eating it raw, or you're putting it with your food, but you can use it topically as well on the skin. So it adds versatility.
It's great for massage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just such a brilliant combination. If you're looking to have some affiliates across the pond, maybe we'll talk about it because we got a huge market for that kind of thing over in SoCal.
Let's do it.
Yeah. It's amazing how those kind of synchronicities just come. They come from places. I mean, it's never something you can predict and plan for. It's like you put your faith and your effort towards something, and then the reward comes, but not in any way that you could have controlled.
Yeah, and that's the excitement factor. That's life. That's how it needs to be and how you want it to be. Otherwise, it'd be boring. If you could predict every step of how everything's going to play out, there's no point going through it. You'll just be going through the motions.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Are you World Tai Chi Day? We were talking about that. I think before we got on here. That's something that is one of my personal passions to share more Tai Chi and Qigong to the world, and World Tai Chi Day is just an amazing event that I support wholeheartedly. What's your relationship with that? Do you have anything going on with World Tai Chi Day?
To be honest, no, I don't. I will just be doing my own Tai Chi practice that day, same as every other day.
Okay.
Well, maybe you'll notice them.
I'm glad it's a big deal for you guys over there, and I hope it's a big celebration, and hopefully some new people will be welcome to the Tai Chi community as well.
Yeah, that's the idea. Well, that's as many people as possible because we want to spread the good news.
Well, I think San Diego is the right kind of place for that. Everyone's open-minded, relaxed. They want to live a good, healthy lifestyle. So you got a good community there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. April
Yeah,
20th.
well, actually,
Oh yeah.
it's kind of ironic what I discovered just fairly recently. Actually, I mean, World Tai Chi Day actually is not very big in San Diego. There hasn't been a major event there prior to the one that I organized and that Andrew helped with also last year. It's just hasn't really caught on in San Diego, but there are a lot of places in the U.S., a lot of cities, and it's in over 80 countries around the world. But what I was pleasantly surprised to find when I started looking to reach out and for connections here in Nepal, I'm in Kathmandu, and I came in contact with an organization, the Nepal branch of the World United Martial Arts Association, that actually has been organizing World Tai Chi Day events here in Kathmandu since 2010, for the last 8 years, and they have 100 to 200 people every year. So I'm gonna be here at that time, and I'll most likely be involved with that event as well as helping to coordinate the San Diego one. But it's really encouraging to me just every year to see all of these different groups of people in so many different places bringing their own version of Tai Chi and sharing their own version of Tai Chi with the world, and it's reaching so many new people. And that kind of relates to something I was curious about, what you see as how the evolution of Tai Chi. How's Tai Chi evolve? How do you see it evolving right now, and where do you see it going in the future?
I see Tai Chi evolving the same way that yoga has over the last 10 years. So it's like, some similar expansion and awareness of it. A lot of people have tried yoga now, and a lot of people love it. It's helped them get back in touch with their body, balance the body, open the body. And now I think people are ready more for the training of the mind and that's all I can say. I think Tai Chi is going to do in the next 10 years what yoga has done in the previous 10 years.
I'd love to see that level of success and expansion and exposure. That would be a really amazing future to live into.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yes, the future is always good. Well, so San Diego seminar, that is going to be June 10th and 11th, and you're going to be coming out and teaching us.
I'm pretty sure it's 17th and 18th.
Let's verify right now.
The 17th is my birthday. That's how I remember.
I'll check what I've got here. Yeah, I got the 17th. I got the 16th and 17th.
Okay, there you go.
All right, 16th, 17th.
So the weekend, right? Saturday, Sunday?
Yeah.
Good. All right. So yeah, when you're coming out, then we're gonna do a Tai Chi seminar, not a self-defense martial arts seminar. It's gonna be a Tai Chi seminar.
Whatever you guys want, I'm happy to show you.
All right, we can do everything. Yeah.
Well, what we're promising is that you'll show Tai Chi people who want to make their Tai Chi combat ready, that you'll be able to help them with that, and MMA practitioners or combat sport practitioners will be able to make their fighting style more efficient.
Yeah.
So
sounds good.
I hope you're going to be able to deliver on that promise.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I do.
Great. Yeah.
Here, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. It's going to be good.
Likewise.
Yeah. So you don't spar anymore, but I'm always happy to spar with anyone who I meet up. It's like, oh, you're a martial artist. Can we fight?
Okay, we're doing it.
All right. Sounds good.
That'll be really great. I am really appreciative of you coming on and spending your time with us, Nick. It's really a pleasure, and I'll be hitting you up about those affiliate business opportunities in Southern California for sure.
Nice. All right. It's been a pleasure, guys. Until June.
Great. Thanks a bunch, Andrew.
For meeting with us and chatting with us. So we will see you June 16th and 17th in San Diego. Look forward to it.
Take care, guys. Peace.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye, Nick.
All right. That does it.